Have you gotten used to working from home? How are you adjusting to constantly working in your own space, communicating only via Zoom, not having personal contact, the personal interaction, the personal dynamic with colleagues and your work environment? Some like it, some hate it, depending on your personal work style and the toxicity or coolness of the company you're associated with. No matter where you stand, for all of us, it means a new way of creating bonds with people and companies. How do we do this? Finding cool and deeper ways to reconnect, dealing with the anxiety of having to go back to work in the office. Music can help. Teams, agility, and yes, culture. Our topic today, welcome to Workplace Shift. I'm Nicolette DeVidar. Most organizations have been working remote for a year now. There are many pluses with that: no commute, being more productive, less exposure to toxic people and toxic work environments for some, and more time to find balance within and what matters to you personally for others. We all got the opportunity for more self-reflection and healing time, checking what matters to you, what might trigger you, and what may bring out the best in you. As we go into spring 2021, the question is, how do we bring all of this together and create cool new work experiences for people that are coming back into the office and for others who opt to work in hybrid or fully remote models? What can we do to feel and become part of an organizational culture? As organizations seem to come out of the deep sleep, well, that's what it feels like, and kickstart a healing reintegration into a changed and hopefully more agile work environment. My guest today is an artist who turned music into a self-care tool that helps transform emotions, use music as a team-building function that impacts the entire organization and culture. By not only helping people heal, deal with anxiety, and regain mental stability, but by sharpening our listening abilities to be more open and inclusive to one another. How this works? Let's find out. Welcome on Workplace Shift, Bill. It's great to have you on, so let's dive right in.
Absolutely. Great to be here. Thank you.
Good. And just for our viewers to know, Bill is joining us from San Diego today.
Yes. Go ahead, dump on me. If you're having bad weather right now, just know that it's still winter in San Diego and it's a little chilly, about maybe 60 degrees today.
Okay, so let's dive right in. Everybody's going to warm up about our topic. So, Bill, music impacts our emotions and mental states. Many people use music when they go to work out, to motivate themselves, to support a certain mood. But we can use music to transform workplaces, can we not?
Absolutely, yes. The same neuroscience that gets us all behind a fight song at a stadium sports game is going to help us in the workplace to get behind our purpose.
And everybody loves the word purpose. I think if anything actually gained definitely on weight and importance, it's the word purpose. So let's look at some of the key issues for employees right now, what they have. So there's a lot of anxiety for going back to the office. There is anxiety to readjusting. There is anxiety for new employees that finally may meet colleagues that they haven't met because they only joined during a Zoom interview or during a Zoom onboarding or things like that. So let's talk a little bit how music can help ease with all of that.
Well, I would love to be able to reach out and just work with all of the HR departments and skillfully create some like welcome back music that works in an environment. But I don't think that's going to happen. People are so strategically focused on like, let's get in and let's make it work and let's do it, that we kind of put music on the side instead of engaging us to do things like actually do things together. And how does it do that? Of course, the music changes our heart rate and it can change our mental state. It can change our emotional state. If we can use music to align us all, then we all come back into the room in a similar place. It's not always the same, and it doesn't have to be the same, but it's similar.
Yeah.
And that unused quality of music that unites people together is something we could really leverage right now.
Yeah,
I don't know how many companies have a song, like IBM used to have one and Ford did. Mm-hmm. They're kind of gone. But the purpose for those songs, that music, was to unite people around their shared purpose, right?
Yeah. And that really brings out a very important thing we need to talk about, because when we talk about music, we're not talking about just choosing a song that you're going to play in the work environment to bring people together. We really talk about using music consciously as a tool to align people, to make it a shared experience, to make it a shared purpose, to bring out that shared purpose. Right?
Yes, and that's where it goes beautiful, because if you can dig in that deep, maybe just on your own. We'll talk about the team in a minute, but maybe just on your own. You're experiencing anxiety. So what's your anxiety music? Like, the purpose of your anxiety is to do something to you, whatever that might be. Maybe it sparks you one way, maybe another. But do you have music that supports you in that place? If you don't, you're going to be stuck with anxiety a lot longer than if you have music to help sort of grease the skids and let those feelings come up and flow so that there's room for other ones. And the magic of that is when you do that, when you apply music to sort of support what you don't want to feel, it helps those feelings move. It helps the feelings move away from you, and it leaves you with the energy that is in that emotion that you can then use for good.
Yeah, and we're talking about two components, Bill. So the way I would look at it is you have the component, of course, for the employees who are coming back into the work environment. So there's a personal level, an individual level, but then there's also an organizational, let's call it organizational health level, because you can impact organizations on a much broader level if we use music consciously as a tool. So let's clarify for our viewers what it means to use music consciously as a self-care tool, and then build on that to how would we use this as an integration, as a soothing, as a transformation tool for an organization that impacts organizational health. Let's talk about the conscious part.
This is a fantastic opportunity. So the sort of corporate, the collective part of music is what we want to focus on. It would be like trying to take a bunch of people in an orchestra and get them to play the same kind of music without offering them any sheet music to refer to. So we have to give them that little guidance, I think is what you're talking about. We have to put the music on the music stand, so when everybody shows up with their instrument, they're all playing the same song, right? How do you do that? Well, there's a couple of parts to this. The thing that people want to do is to fall back into their strategic mindset. Just say, oh, play some music, it'll change everything. Well, that's true. But what's the right music to use? The right music to use is the music that you love. The neuroscience on this is that the music we love is more powerful. So let's say you have a team of people around the table and you want to say, we need to be able to support what we're doing, our purpose, with music that we love. And then you start a conversation. And of course, everybody's going to have different music that they love. But the process of listening to one another and listening to one another's music and then refining and choosing and breaking it down, is sort of like if the orchestra were to choose the song to play. What song should we play? This exercise takes us out of the strategic mind and out of the tactical thinking that we often fall back into. And it opens the way for creative, we'll call it creative negotiation. How about that? So that you and I together develop the song that we need to fit into that moment for that purpose. The purpose is back to work, or the purpose is resolving anxiety, or the purpose is resolving conflict. What would be the music that supports that exercise? You don't have to worry about the direction of it or where it's going to go, or what the ultimate outcome is going to be. Your focus is to be present, and to be present with each other in the presence of music also transforms things. And transformation, of course, is what we need right now. So this is a process. It's not so much an outcome, it's a process.
And there's several components to that process, right? So one part is,
let's stay with the components.
Learning to consciously listening to the music so you can use it as a transformation tool. Learning to use the music to transform emotions that you may feel, states of anxiety or states of being triggered or states of something else, or even in a more positive sense, trigger a positive state, and then also bring it together and make it a shared experience. So there are three. So the way I'm looking at it, so there are three components to it.
Yes, I think you're absolutely correct on this. I like to say there's two ways to use music, right? You have to choose music you love, number one, and then listen on purpose. And I really do mean listen. Not listen in the background, but bring it right up in the foreground. Put on your headphones or You're sitting around the table. Get somebody's phone and put it on the table with these songs on it and listen to them together. Like, make yourself do that, not in a distracted environments. You want to give yourself the opportunity to be fully present. And in that full presence that music invites, things happen, really great things, as you know. But you have to really bring your commitment to that and focus to that. So there's like the negotiation around the song. You and I choose the song, and we play it on the phone, and we're both there, present, listening. And at the end, we'll feel something about it. Like, well, that was really the right song, or maybe it wasn't quite right. Maybe we need to listen to another song. And the music itself plays with us and with our emotions and with our thoughts, even with us physically and spiritually, to a place where we then can guide ourselves closer together, closer to unity. And that's the magic of it, is using music to sort of negotiate our way toward a more cohesive experience of the job we want to get done, the purpose.
Yeah. Doesn't that sound like a perfect team or group exercise together? Talk about building a culture and getting people excited to come back to work. So to me, that seems like it's the perfect thing to do. So let's see, Bill, how would we start with that? So when you have an HR department right now and they worry about how do they phase people back in, what would be the starting point? Would the starting point be in figuring out, first of all, what are the key triggers, anxieties, or motivators?
It's sort of a circular thing, because if you can identify a purpose, and let's simplify it and just say we're after one purpose right now. Maybe it's intervention with anxiety. There's a pretty decent purpose. If you can identify that purpose, then you can also ask your team, so what are the songs for you that help you intervene with anxiety? And you might find that some people like, metal helps them intervene with things. Some people use classical music. There's going to be a variety, right? And that's going to spark a conversation, but it's more of a conversation about how it feels for me to listen to metal music and how it feels for you to listen to classical music when we are triggered to anxiety. And that conversation is one of those beautiful things that we call the paradox, right? Because your music is true for you, my music is true for me. And as a team, the two of us are going to have to go forward in some fashion that allows us to use the music we choose for this purpose, for intervening with anxiety. Now, what's the music going to be ultimately? Is it going to be metal? Is it going to be classical? Probably not, but it'll be something else that comes as a part of this process of engaging with each other in a non-typical way, wouldn't you say?
Oh, totally. Totally.
We're not solving a problem. We're inventing something new.
I was going to say,
creating a solution.
Yes, you basically are part of writing your own music for your own team. And when you think about this, first of all, if you're a team leader, for example, and a team member, you learn a lot about the state, the emotional state and mental state of your other colleagues and team members. You learn a lot more about them, which probably you haven't learned at that level during the last year because everybody worked from home, and so there was more of a disconnect there, right, with each other.
Yes.
So you kind of get to know each other on a very different level. And not to forget that I think at this point, everyone, because we've all worked remote or from home for a whole year, I think it is fair to say that everyone today is definitely in a different space than they were a year ago. So it's almost like getting to know one another on a completely different level, all new again. So I think that would be, seems to me, this would be really a perfect way to ease in and go on a deeper level right from the start, and saying that I'm actually interested in your emotions, your state, your mental, your state where you're in, your anxieties, your fears, your joys, and I make them part of it by listening to your music, and then you also look at mine, and then let's bring it together. What would a collective song or sound look like? Which means probably it's going to bring the whole team on an entirely different level, does it not?
A place you've never gone before. And there is this sense of how much of myself do I have to reveal at work, right? So we kind of protect a lot of ourselves. And I'm not talking about making some big, like HIPAA compliant, revelation about who you are.
Yep.
Human beings are equipped to be able to sense one another's emotional states, mental states, without having to talk about it. This is nonverbal. So when we respond to
Yeah.
music, and if we're paying attention to one another, we can often learn things about how the other person is feeling or thinking as they listen to a piece of music in a nonverbal way. The information just comes to us. So if I'm improvising with a band, I can tell by what's going on with the other people in the band where they're going to go, what they're feeling, how they're going to
Yeah.
move the melody. And I don't have to ask them, it happens in real time. And with practice, of course, that's what musicians can do. But we all have those skills. We all have them. And music opens that moment of presence where we can see, or it's probably a bad word to use, but feel or somehow understand one another more deeply than we'd be able to do without the music and without necessarily having to say anything.
Yeah, because it connects on a much deeper level, as you said. One always says, you know, music is what the universe is built on, because sound travels far and it shapes and it forms. And so you connect on a much deeper level. So when we look at this, Bill, so there's obviously a tremendous gain and growth from it, to offer this as a team exercise, to use it in your teams, but also use it then on a larger thing, even in cross-disciplinary teams, for example, or and in a larger organizational sense, to also utilize this to shape in a way organizational culture. Because I think there is, because we've been remote, so the way I look at it, I think HR people are looking at two different things. One, people who just joined during last year and they never had a chance to really be on site, so they never really experienced the corporate culture. And it's very difficult to build a corporate culture unless you really are on site and feel the dynamic and be part of it. So I think there is definitely a need to kind of bring it all together and shape that and refine that. And then the other part is also to bring people together so they can really join and get on a higher level and kind of coagulate a little bit better, and chart into a new direction. Kickstart maybe a new process.
Yes.
So both can be
used. The way that you frame it. There's that we call it anxiety intervention, right? That's sort of dealing with a problem. But the transformational potential in music is remarkable. And I'm very curious to see if cultures that used to be one way before we all went to work from home, then reassemble in a brand new way, or if they try to go back to the way they were before. I think going back is going to be difficult.
Yeah.
And going forward is going to be difficult too. But if it's handled skillfully, that going forward into whatever our transformed culture looks like, that's the big opportunity right now. And enterprises that get it and that do that part well, wow, they're just going to lead the pack, because the other ones will still be trying to figure out, how to put it back the old way. Yeah. And the old way is no longer the way, people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's fair to say there are two ways of dealing with that. So there's one, that the music can help people on a personal level to regain their mental stability in a way, because I think everyone got a little, one way or another, you felt the weight of COVID during the last year.
We need to be reinvigorated,
Yes. So there's the healing aspect of it, and then there is the growth aspect of it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Good word, healing and growth. Maslow used to call the part that we like to call healing or intervention, he called that deficiency. And I think that that's accurate, from a standpoint of a psychologist, but I love the idea of healing more. It's such a more gentle word, and it invites the opportunity rather than just saying, oh no, you're bad, So let's go with healing and growth. And growth is Maslow's word too, because as you self-actualize, that's a big pull toward growth. And that's where we all want to go.
And I think a lot of organizations right now also really have an added responsibility to take care of the health, particularly the mental and emotional health of their employees, because with all the lockdowns, I think we're going to see more and more real issues with that. This is going to be a biggie, and there's got to be some ways to do this on a deeper level and equip people with the right tools that they can actually learn to use throughout their day. Now that's
there's there's a built-in problem, because if everybody who works suddenly needs a therapist, there won't be enough therapists to go around.
Yeah.
I mean, there already aren't enough therapists to go around, but if we go back, like if we use our EEP programs or whatever and head to therapy in mass,
Yeah.
Therapists aren't going to have enough time for us. So we've got to find ways to care for ourselves more skillfully than we have, so that when we do get a chance, like to talk with a professional, we're prepared, we're ready, we've done some work already. We can sustain the work that happens after we talk to the pro in ways that enliven us and keep us in the game, and do all the other wonderful things that HR departments are really worried about right now.
Yeah.
Because we have been compressed, we've been stuffed into our
Yes.
shells in a way that
Yes.
we've never had to be stuffed into our shells before. And
Yes.
so re-expanding is going to be a fun thing, but also
Yeah.
a thing that requires guidance. And I think you're very wise to make that observation.
I really like that you call your tool, that particular process that you've developed, you call it using music as a self-care tool in a way. I want to go a little
Yes.
deeper and talk about, take us through where you can take people when they actually go on that discovery journey, so to speak.
Well, I love this. I've been on that discovery journey consciously now for about 30 years. And by that discovery journey, what I mean is that there's a way to engage with my music, the music that I love, music that you love as well for you, in a way that invites me to a deeper level of understanding of myself, a deeper awareness of myself, and most importantly, a deeper level of self-compassion. And if I practice that for myself, using music in this way, when it's time to go online with that in the real world and bring it out and walk the walk, so to speak, I've done some work with it. So I'm not as terrified of the real world anymore and the opportunities that it's going to ask of me to take that same kind of self-aware journey, perhaps alone or perhaps in a team. So to design that process into a how-to, here's how you can do it, 1, 2, 3, that kind of thing, was a great opportunity that I took a few years back and built it into this online quest. It's actually a journey, and to be able to take that journey using the music that you love is a beautiful way of practicing the transformational power of the music that you love most. So that when you're ready to go out into the world, you've got some tools in your pocket, and you can give yourself, instead of just a triggered reaction that takes you out of the game for 30 seconds, you can give yourself the opportunity to respond to those triggers skillfully. And sure, they're going to spark you or whatever. If they make you angry or mad or scared, that's fine, because you have the tools now that you know how to use them to let that trigger come at you, feel it fully, and then let the negative emotion pass, releasing the positive energy that's right there, ready at your fingertips, that you've never had before, because you've just been too busy being scared or angry or upset by the trigger. So what a great opportunity to learn about how you respond offline, so you can walk it in real life when you go online with it.
Yeah, and discovering a lot more about yourself. And just for our viewers to know, I actually did go on that music quest. I went on that journey to try it out and see what it's like. And it was an absolute fantastic experience, because you really do discover many facets of yourself that you probably even didn't know they were really sitting on the deep level. So this is a great way of doing it. To me, Bill, this is almost like you teach people with those tools to tell their emotions in a story, but express it through the musical curve.
Yes, the arc of music, the way that it builds tension and releases it, is the same as the arc in a story. And we all love stories. The current thing you can watch, well, Facebook did it, now LinkedIn's doing it. There's all the little story icon where you can go and tell your story. We love stories, and we respond to them because that's how we are. We're built, we're equipped. We drop into the world with the equipment that we need to experience contrast and tension and release. And if we are skillful at tension and release, we're going to be happy and healthy. But if we continue to block it or hold it back, not so good, right?
Exactly.
So this opportunity of aligning yourself and your story with the music that you love is reminding you of a built-in skill that you can become very good with, actually, without having to play an instrument or anything. You can be very good with the skill of telling your own story in a way that engages the music that you love to help you emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually move through those stories. And you know, you've done this. The stories go pretty deep sometimes,
Yes.
and you wind up investigating parts of them that you hadn't really touched before. I mean, you know the story, but you don't really get how deep it goes until you allow the connection that music offers.
Yeah.
And that's transformative.
It's totally transformative. I also think it helps people very much becoming more true to themselves and more true to who they are. And talking about in a workplace environment right now, where authenticity really matters. I mean, if employees and workers really are at their best, that's usually when they follow their purpose and when they are able to bring in all their talents and their gifts. But unless you really define that space and become very true to yourself, then that sometimes gets into very murky waters. Like I used to say, the truer you are to yourself, the truer your life is going to be. So that music tool can help not just people, I find, but also organizations to really become much truer to who they are and get them in a place where they can bring out the best in their staff because they give them the tools to make it happen.
We're so much on the same page. Authenticity is much more than a buzzword. If you really want to use it, you got to be vulnerable. And the environment in which you deploy that vulnerability has got to be safe for you. It's been a big risk for those of us who've known these things for a while to be vulnerable in a workplace environment.
Yeah.
You'll often hear people say, and I do this frequently as a consultant, you know what, I don't know the answer to your question, but I'll be glad to find out and get back to you. And 20 years ago, that took a whole ton of courage. In fact, in IBM school, they didn't even teach us to do that, right?
Yes.
That was IBM marketing school 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But that takes courage and takes authenticity, a certain amount of vulnerability to take that risk to say, I don't know.
Yeah.
The other one is to be able to say, I'm sorry, and actually have it work, right? To apologize in a way that people understand.
Yeah.
And these are ways that we've dipped a toe in the water, but we're called to a deeper level of authenticity now. Things like diversity and equity and inclusivity are really opening us up to what it means to be authentic. And if any part of you is out of alignment, people are going to notice. They're going to notice really fast. And plenty of examples of that. But they're also going to notice when you are aligned, because it comes across in those nonverbal ways as power and honesty and integrity. And people want to trust people who can express that well. Not who are just putting on a hat that says, okay, this is my powerful and trusting and integrity hat, but people who are that way. You don't have to talk about it, they just are. We know who that is. And we can recognize them when we see them. We can also practice that for ourselves so that when we come to the table, we come with authentic power and integrity and honesty and all the other things that we know are the enablers of success.
I totally agree. Now, you mentioned something that I want to dive a little deeper here for a moment, and that's diversity, equity, and inclusion. How can that music tool help us with that in the workplace? So if we use music as a self-care tool, if they go on the music quest, for example, how can that affect the diversity and inclusion aspect that is so important right now, as we're beginning to realize more and more that, whole means the sum of all of its parts?
It does. Cancel culture is the other side of that. You've got DEI on one side and cancel culture on the other. It would be a shame for me to miss your particular cultural background. And that's just me. This is way beyond what a business can do. But by opening up the conversation around music, that gives you and me an opportunity to offer our cultural biases, because they are, in a positive way. And that is an incredible opportunity, because it's far beyond a checkbox. It's far beyond having, such percentage of people who are of this race and such who are of this race. It's far beyond having salaries that are, not 300 times more for the CEO than they are for the hourly workers. Those are important things, but those are symptoms. And there's symptoms of the fact that we don't really know each other. We don't really get each other on this level. There's so many movies out there. I could list a bunch of them. I won't do it. But where the boss realizes that they're being an idiot, and that they've totally neglected what it means to be a human being. And to come around to that and sort of open that up again is what music can do for us, especially in this DEI conversation.
Yes.
Which is going to be strategic and checkbox driven. But the companies who really get it will transform so that everyone in the company, regardless of their gender or income or race or whatever, finds themselves able to be vulnerable, fully appreciated, and completely present for the process, for the purpose of the work.
Yes.
That's what we want.
And as we know today, it really is all about the human experience. It's no longer just here's the life at work and here's the life at home. It is all about the human experience. So why not
come back to us, right?
Integrate the music as a part, which we know already, such a deep cultural part, and really make it a human experience. Bill, we're already out of time. Thank you so much for coming on. Great of you to join us, and I'm sure we'll hear more about that. Thanks.
Looking forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And for you, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you get curious. You can find out a little bit more information on our Facebook page, of course, facebook.com Nicolette DeVidar, and you can learn more about the music journey. I've done it. You can see some of that. We have a podcast series come out of that, and then we'd love to hear your feedback.